In the late 18th century, Britain was facing a prison crisis. Jails were overcrowded. Criminals were locked up with no space left. So the government made a bold decision to send them far away, across the ocean to an unknown land. That land was Australia. In 1788, the first fleet arrived in Botany Bay. On board were more than 700 convicts, guarded by British soldiers. They were not settlers. They were prisoners, banished to survive in a harsh and unfamiliar land. From this, a new nation began. But why Australia? Why send them so far from home? And what about the people who were already living there? The indigenous Australians? Their world was about to change forever. Before the British arrived, Australia was already home to the world's oldest continuous culture. The Aboriginal people had lived on the continent for over 65,000 years. They had their own laws, languages, and connection to the land. But when the British came, they declared the land as terra nullius, land belonging to no one. This lie erased indigenous rights. As convicts built settlements, Aboriginal communities were pushed out, hunted, and killed. Diseases spread. Sacred lands were taken. The arrival of the British was not the start of Australia. It was the beginning of colonization and suffering for the first people. As more convict ships arrived, new settlements were created. Sydney grew, followed by Melbourne and other colonies. The British needed land, so they kept pushing further inland, clearing forests, building farms, and driving out Aboriginal communities. Some Aboriginal groups resisted. They fought back in what is now known as the Frontier Wars, but they had no guns. No armies, only spears and spirit. Thousands were killed. Their resistance was never recorded in official British history. But to the First Nations people, it was a war of survival. This part of history was buried for decades. Until now. By the mid-1800s, things began to change. Gold was discovered in Australia, attracting thousands of people from around the world. Chinese workers, Europeans, and fortune seekers flooded into the colonies. Towns grew rapidly. Roads, schools, and cities were built. Some convicts were freed and became landowners or businessmen. Australia was no longer just a prison island. It was becoming a place of opportunity. But not for everyone. Aboriginal people were still being pushed aside, denied rights, and excluded from this progress. While the settlers built a future, the First Nations were being erased from the story. In 1901, Australia officially became a nation. The 6 colonies joined together to form the Commonwealth of Australia. They created their own parliament and laws, but remained loyal to the British Crown. The new government wanted to build a strong, united identity. But that identity was white. The White Australia policy was introduced, banning non-European immigrants and promoting racial purity. Aboriginal people were not counted as citizens. They couldn't vote. They couldn't own land. While Australia grew richer and more powerful, the original owners of the land were still left behind. It was a nation, but not yet equal. In the 20th century, Australia began to look beyond its borders. During World War I and World War II, Australian soldiers fought alongside Britain in Europe and Asia. Thousands died in battles far from home. Then came the Vietnam War, and Australia joined the United States in fighting communism in Southeast Asia. It was the first time many Australians set foot in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam. These wars shaped Australia's identity as a global player, not just a British follower. But back home, Aboriginal Australians were still fighting a different war, for land, for rights, for recognition. As Australia looked outward, it still hadn't fully healed within. Today, Australia is one of the most developed and peaceful countries in the world. Its cities are modern. Its economy is strong. But the shadows of its past remain. Aboriginal Australians are still among the most disadvantaged communities in the country. For decades, they were denied basic rights. Their children taken away, their stories ignored. In recent years, movements for justice have grown. The government made formal apologies. Flags were raised. Voices were heard. But healing takes time. Australia's story is not just about convicts or war. It's about resilience, survival, and the ongoing fight for truth. From a prison island to a global nation, the journey is far from over.